Howdy, folks. I'm Rebecca Jolly from Jolly Alchemy, and today I would like to give you a little bit of an explanation of why I think human design is so cool. And this is a new analogy for me, so tell me what you think. It's about metaphors. So, in learning to understand about life, a lot of what it's about is trying to find a metaphor that reflects what we see in life. For example, the metaphor of astrology. It's a very ancient metaphor that many people have used to help gain insight into the underlying ways that things are working. Another metaphor that's very ancient would be medicine, specifically Western medicine for us. Another metaphor, religion. Another metaphor, virtual reality games like Sims or Ark. These metaphors help us see life from a certain perspective so that we can understand something about ourselves, life, each other, patterns, so that we can be more successful in using those patterns. So, what I really like about human design is that it gathers together many ancient metaphors, patterns, and ways of looking at life and puts them together so that they're integrated into one system. But it's also able to generate its own additional internal metaphors for understanding things. So let me give you some examples. All right. So from the chart here, we have these numbers, the unconscious numbers and the conscious numbers activated. All right. These are somewhat related to astrology. Astrology, if you were in loose terms, an astrologer would be if you went to them talking about this set of numbers here. All right. And that's a useful metaphor. That's good, but it's only part of what's going on in human design, right? Human design also has the metaphors of looking through things through the lens of chakras or energy centers in the body. That's also a helpful metaphor, and it's integrated within this system. Then it has its own metaphors, because I'm not going to tell you every way that it's using ancient metaphors, but those are two, okay? So then we have another one of its own internal metaphors. This fraction that you see here in the chart, this fraction is an internal metaphor for human design called profile that really helps to understand. So even if I never taught you anything about human design, if I was to just teach you about profiles, that one tiny aspect of human design, that right there would give you a ton of information about yourself, the world, and other people and understanding them. That metaphor isn't anywhere else, but it is also a small piece of what's going on in all of this stuff of integration. These numbers here on the side, these letters, left, right, orientation, that's another internal metaphor for human design. As is this number over here, base, and this letter here, it's a designation of type. So manifesting generator in the 64 keys version of the human design metaphor, it's called a specialist, whereas a generator, which is over here, is called a builder, and a projector is called a coordinator, and a manifester is called an initiator, and I also have a reflector up here, and that would be right here. A reflector is called an observer. So it's a matter of integrating and understanding and synthesizing metaphors. So to wrap it up, what I really like about human design is that it's complex and rich in its capacity to use both metaphors that some people are also aware of already and traditionally and anciently, and new metaphors. So it's upgrading, updating, synthesizing, organizing, visually representing, and giving new metaphors of its own so that it makes this great big system for understanding ourselves, each other, and the world and what we're meant to be doing here. So that's very cool. The problem with it is that, like with any complex metaphor, the hack or the instruction book itself becomes difficult. So, for an example, I play Ark sometimes with my daughter, and Ark is a very complex sandbox game where you can do a bunch of different kinds of activities. If you want to go fight and kill, you can do all that. If you just want to garden or just want to like breed and raise different brightly colored animals, you can do that. So you can have lots of different foci for your interest in this game, which is what makes it appealing to so many people. But because it's such a complex game, the hacks and the cheats and the mods is a whole system of study of its own. So if you wanted to modify that game with a certain mod, you'd have to go study mods to find out which mod is the right mod to apply to this game to get what I actually want out of it. That's kind of what like human design is. When we first see our charts and we look at this whole complicated thing, all these abbreviations, numbers, symbols, signs, colors, it's just like, I can't really understand a whole lot about it, except I can beginning to see, oh, okay, this is about the throat. I can see whether or not I have throat energy immediately when I look at this chart. As opposed to say this chart over here. Okay, fine. I can see, little things like that. But the finer details are completely lost until you enter into a rather deep study of what human design is. And the problem with human design is that deep study can take so long and be so difficult and complicated that you'd basically have to devote your entire life to studying human design in order to be able to understand fully what's going on with yourself, with other people, and the world around you. Who's got that kind of time? Well, really, nobody but a specialist has got that kind of time. And so what's good about specialists like me is that I've spent, not all the time, because I've only been at it 4.5 years, but 4.5 years for a specialist is a lot of time for, say, a coordinator or not a manifester, I would say, because a manifester is able to move when they choose that direction even faster than a specialist. But certainly for a builder, an observer, or a coordinator, or in traditional human design terms, a generator, a projector, or a reflector. A manifesting generator is able to move faster than they are in that direction once they've chosen that direction. So I do have some insight and skills and more all the time. And these videos in which I'm sharing information with you are a way for me to both make sense of all these processes internally and share them with you folks. The difficulty is that for people coming into the system, it's hard to see how useful the system is until you understand the system, right? It's hard to understand how awesome that mod is going to be on the game until you've actually done the research and the work to download the mod and test it and see, oh, this is a fucking cool mod. Everyone should have this mod. This mod could help everybody do blah, 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 blah. But until you get into it on some level, it's hard to see how useful it can be. So those of us who are in it, our minds are blown by how useful it is. And we want to tell everybody and say, oh my gosh, this could help you in so many ways. But other people looking at it go, it just looks like something really complicated and esoteric, and I don't really see how it could help me. So there's a beginning level to which it's useful, I think, for everyone to get into human design a little bit, to understand and to be more themselves. But there are a lot of levels in which it's really useful to have that specialist giving the knowledge, giving the insight, giving the direction to that journey so that the person who's a beginner doesn't get overwhelmed, so they don't get the wrong kinds of information that they don't need right now, So in my work, a lot of it is about focusing on the individual to help them be guided through their human design journey to get to what they really need to help be themselves, understand their not self, avoid the not part, sit down and really soak up the part of them that is them. And on a more global way, it's useful for a specialist like me to be able to give overarching concepts so that someone who's a beginner can look at their design and say, okay, well, I've heard these concepts from the specialist, and what can I get out of them? What can I squeeze from this lemon, this fruit of information that's being given to me in, say, a small video like this, and bring it down to the personal so that I can extract what I need from it on my own personal growth journey. So we have growth journeys happening on a lot of levels. We have insights happening on a lot of levels. But human design is, and it's been my job to study metaphors for a large part of my life. I started off inside of the metaphor of a religious cult, so I was really wrapped up in that metaphor for a while, and then when I realized, oh, okay, this metaphor isn't really big enough to explain larger processes, I left that metaphor behind and engaged in a search for a better metaphor. So I'm not saying this is the best metaphor that's ever been invented, but I am saying in 30 years of concentrated study, this is the best metaphor that I have found. There is one other that I think is extremely useful, and human design doesn't cover it, and that's, I think, getting into quantum physics, which the best way that I've found to go into that is by looking at something like Tom Campbell's My Big Toe, I think. There's others, but they get a little, like Eckhart Tolle. He's doing good things, but he's doing like more of a practical how-to rather than giving people a metaphor on that like spirit side of things. And I think that what's good about My Big Toe is that it gives people who are very left-brained, and so much of our society is focused on the left-brained now, it gives those left-brained people a way to logically see what's difficult for us to understand about quantum physics. So that is something that is not fully addressed in human design. But I think by the time you put together human design and something like My Big Toe, you get something that is actually robust enough to explain pretty much everything that we're seeing. There's a little bit of wiggle room, but as far as metaphors I've seen, this is way more able to give information than traditional astrology or any of the other, ancient metaphors. The I Ching. The I Ching is super useful and a major part of the human design metaphor, but even the I Ching has real limits without being a part of the human design metaphor. So, to sum up, what I love about human design is it's a great metaphor. So, when it comes to metaphors, there's a key element, and that is we must have open-minded skepticism. We have to be open-minded enough to draw in and consider new ideas and try to verify them, try them out, see if they're practical, see if they work for you, see if they're useful. But you also have to be skeptical, because human design, like any metaphor, has places where it doesn't perfectly describe, and it was received through one person initially. So then you have to consider, well, what's the lens through which this inspiration or this what would you call it, reception, this system is received. It was received through a specific guy with specific limits. And so I don't think that Ra is the end-all be-all, some guru that we need to worship. He was just the only person in the right time, at the right place, with the right capacity to receive this download and then give it to the world. So I think that it's useful to have his information as the progenitor of human design, but I also think that it needs to progress, it needs to go beyond that, it needs to travel beyond what Ra originally received, and so that's why we see human design fracturing and breaking and going in lots of different directions. Some of those directions I find to be more or less useful according to the lens of the person that is responsible for that fracture. So you have to always analyze where that information is coming from and the clarity of the person that is bringing those insights to you. So basically, you can't just receive from anyone. You need to analyze your teacher and make sure that your teacher is able to translate and produce the insights and the helpful pieces of information that will then make that metaphor work for people individually. So, long story short, there it is. If you would like more insights on how I see the metaphor and how I am advancing the human design metaphor, come on and see me at jollyalchemy.com, or you can like and subscribe and continue to check out what it is that I'm doing here. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye.